Not to think, not to weigh my options, to choose. And I chose wrong. The screams were so loud, I could barely hear myself breathe. The monitors were going haywire, flat lines, beeping, alarms, and in the middle of it all, 2 lives, a mother and her unborn child, both bleeding out in front of me. And the clock was already ticking. Do you know what it feels like to play God without any of his wisdom? I do, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. The worst part, it wasn't supposed to be my patient. That night I was covering for a colleague, a last-minute call, an emergency C-section scheduled for someone else. But she crashed before he could arrive. They shoved the chart into my hands. I didn't even know her name, but she knew mine. "Doctor," she whispered, eyes wide with terror, "please, don't let my baby die." She was only 22, barely more than a child herself. She was already in hypovolemic shock, BP dropping, pulse thready, pupils sluggish. The baby's heart rate, 72 and falling, no time to consult, no time to think, save one, lose the other. I remember my hands trembling, and that never happens. 12 years in the trauma awe, dozens of emergency deliveries. I thought I had seen everything, but not this choice. Do I cut deep and fast, save the baby, while knowing the mother will never wake up again, or stabilize the mother and let the child die inside her? She looked up at me, blood pooling around her, a single tear sliding down her cheek, and said the words I'll never forget. But she knew mine. "Doctor," she whispered, eyes wide with terror, "please, don't let my baby die." She was only 22, barely more than a child herself. She was already in hypovolemic shock, BP dropping, pulse thready, pupils sluggish. The baby's heart rate, 72 and falling, no time to consult, no time to think, save one, lose the other. I remember my hands trembling, and that never happens. 12 years in the trauma awe, dozens of emergency deliveries. I thought I had seen everything, but not this choice. Do I cut deep and fast, save the baby, while knowing the mother will never wake up again, or stabilize the mother and let the child die inside her? She looked up at me, blood pooling around her, a single tear sliding down her cheek, and said the words I'll never forget. "If you have to choose, save her. Her, not me. Her." And then she flatlined. "You think I chose right? You think this story ends with gratitude, with redemption? It doesn't, because 5 minutes later, the baby stopped breathing too. But that's not the whole story, because that night, someone lied, and I didn't find out until months later. Do you want to know what they never told me? They called me at 2:17 a.m. I was in the on-call room, half asleep, half dreaming of something I can't remember now. And then the pager buzzed like a gunshot in my pocket. Code red maternity ward, stat C-section, Dr. Ellman unavailable, your closest. I didn't ask questions. You don't in moments like that. You run. I didn't even have time to tie my scrub cap properly. By the time I burst through the delivery suite doors, it was already chaos. Nurses yelling, a fetal monitor screeching, the patient, a young woman soaked in blood, convulsing on the table. Her eyes darted toward me. I remember thinking, she looks like a teenager. "She's 36 weeks, a nurse shouted. BP's crashing, fetal heart rate in the 70s. I grabbed the chart. No prenatal history, no notes, just a name. Sophia Mendez, age 22. She was alone, no family, no partner, not even an emergency contact. And that's when she looked at me and whispered, "Doctor, please, don't let my baby die." Her voice was barely audible over the alarms. Her hand was cold, ice cold, when it brushed mine. And in that moment, something twisted in my chest. Not just panic, not just urgency, guilt, I had been here before, not with Sophia, but with another patient, a different night, a different mother, and I didn't save her either, but we don't talk about that case. It's buried deep in the hospital archives, right next to my disciplinary report, the one no one ever brings up, unless I screw up again. So I couldn't lose them both. Not again. I called for crash prep. No time to page OB. Anesthesiologist was 10 minutes out. We had to move. Now. I turned to the resident. Scalpel. No spinal. She's too unstable. General anesthesia only. Blood pressure, 50/30. Baby's heart rate, 62. Then she said it. Those 5 words that shattered everything. If you have to choose, save her. I knew what she meant, but I also knew what she didn't say. She didn't say, let me die. She didn't say, leave me behind. She was begging for something else, for a chance, for both of them, for a miracle. We opened fast, midline incision. The bleeding was worse than I expected. Placenta previa, total. She was crashing hard, heart rate erratic, BP unmeasurable, and the baby tangled in the umbilical cord, cyanotic. Still, I had 60 seconds. That's what they train you for, to act, to choose. I reached for the baby first. The team suctioned, ventilated, stimulated. We got a faint gasp, then nothing. I turned back to Sophia, but her heart had stopped, completely. We tried to bring her back, 1 minute, 2, 5. But by then it was already too late. Both of them, gone. And I was left in that cold, fluorescent room, covered in blood that wasn't mine, with hands that had done everything right, and failed anyway. That was the story I told myself, that I did my best, that it was a no-win scenario. But the body doesn't lie. And when the autopsy came in, something didn't add up. Sophia had marks on her arms, old bruises, and a scar on her abdomen that shouldn't have been there. That's when I started asking questions. And when I did, the hospital told me to stop. They said it was over, that I had done all I could. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone wanted her dead. I couldn't sleep after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, not Sophia's, Heron. Her name was Julia, and she died 2 years ago. Another emergency C-section, another no-win scenario, another night that never really ended, and I made the same choice. Julia was 31, 3rd pregnancy, complications at 34 weeks. She came in pale, shaking, bleeding from somewhere we couldn't see. The baby was in distress. So was she. I chose the baby, delivered him barely breathing but alive. Julia coded on the table. Massive embolism. We couldn't bring her back. I remember her husband standing in the hallway, still wearing his work boots, looking at me like I'd ripped his soul out. He never said a word, just stared, and then walked away. 3 days later, he filed a complaint. Negligence. Unjustified prioritization. Incomplete consent. The hospital covered for me mostly. They called it an unfortunate but unavoidable loss. But my record? It hasn't been clean since. They made me take a week off, put me through psychological screening. A supervisor shadowed my next 10 deliveries, like I was some kind of threat. I told myself that Julia's death wasn't my fault, that I did what any doctor would have, that I saved the one with the highest chance of survival. But part of me always wondered, was I really making medical decisions? Or was I playing out some twisted God complex? And then came Sophia, and she wasn't like the others. The autopsy report came in 2 days after her death. I wasn't supposed to see it. But a nurse in pathology owed me a favour. I read it in the dark, slouched in the ER break room, the buzzing of the vending machine the only sound. The report said, possible signs of prior surgical intervention. A faint midline scar, healed but recent, 6 months old maybe. But Sophia had no prior records, no OB visits, no insurance, just showed up one night, 22 and terrified. And then I remembered something strange, the way she flinched when I touched her wrist. The old bruises, linear, parallel, fading yellow, not from falling, from restraints. And then there was the scar, not a C-section, not laparoscopic. It looked like exploratory surgery, or something done in secret. That's when I started digging. Her address listed on the chart didn't exist. Her listed phone number? Out of service. No family, no next of kin, no ID, just a name she whispered through bloodied lips. Sophia Mendez. I checked the National Medical Database. No history, no birth certificate, no high school enrollment. It was like she never existed. A ghost who showed up to die on my table. And someone didn't want her story told. I brought it up in the morning debrief. Asked why the security cameras in that OR had gone dark at 2:11 a.m., 6 minutes before I arrived. You know what my chief said? It's a glitch. A glitch. The same kind of glitch that deleted her intake forms from the system, that accidentally disposed of the fetal blood sample, that couldn't locate the backup monitor logs. I know what that means. I've seen cover-ups before, and this was too clean. I started thinking back. Who called me that night? Which nurse logged the page? Why was Dr. Ellman suddenly unavailable? And why did Sophia say my name like she already knew it? I tried asking around, tried pulling security logs, tried contacting the pathology department. 2 days later, I got an official email. This matter is closed. No further action required. Please refrain from pursuing this case independently. That's when I knew. This wasn't just medical. This was personal. Someone brought her to me, on purpose. They wanted me to forget her, erase the memory like a bad outcome on a spreadsheet. But I couldn't. Something about Sophia wouldn't let go. She didn't just die. She was erased, and someone made sure of it. I started going back through my old cases, looking for anything that felt remotely similar. Unexplained maternal deaths, missing charts, sudden system failures, and something started to form, a pattern. 3 cases over the past 18 months, all young women, all undocumented, all with no family present, all died during routine procedures, all logged under different attending physicians, but all admitted through the same ER nurse. Her name was Kendra Locke. I barely knew her, always quiet, always efficient, shifted between maternity and trauma units seamlessly. I pulled up the security logs again, this time with the help of an old friend in IT. Kendra was on shift the night Sophia came in. She was also on shift during the other 3 deaths. And then I found something else, buried deep in the system metadata, an access log. Kendra had opened Sophia's electronic file an hour before she arrived. Pause, heartbeat slows. That shouldn't be possible. Patient records don't get created until after admission. There's no reason for a nurse to access a file before the patient is even in the building. Unless she knew Sophia was coming, or worse, sent for her. I confronted her in the stairwell, away from cameras, away from supervisors. She smiled too quickly, too confidently. "Doctor," she said, "isn't it better for you not to ask questions you don't want answers to?" That line hit me harder than any accusation ever could, because it was familiar. 2 years ago, after Julia's death, I asked the same kind of questions. The night before I got suspended, my supervisor pulled me aside and said almost the same words. Sometimes, the deeper you dig, the worse it gets. Back then, I thought they meant my guilt. But now I wonder if they meant something else entirely. What if this isn't about me being reckless, but about me being useful? I started thinking about Sophia's words again. The way she whispered, "If you have to choose, save her." Not me, not the baby, her. Could it have meant someone else? Someone she left behind? I searched for any connection between Sophia and Julia. At first, nothing. Different ethnicities, different neighborhoods, different years. But then, one night, while rechecking intake paperwork, I noticed something strange. Both Julia and Sophia listed the same referral source code, PRC-108. It wasn't a real referral code, not used in any official database. I checked 3 other unexplained maternal death cases, same code, PRC-108. I took the code to my friend in admin. She blinked. That's not in use anymore. Was part of an old trial, years ago. What kind of trial? She hesitated, then whispered, Preterm Research Consortium. Private, funded by pharma. Shut down after a whistleblower incident. Too many adverse maternal outcomes. Buried in legal jargon. Forgotten. But someone at this hospital is still using that code, and every woman connected to it is dead. I went to the board. I told them everything. The matching deaths, the referral code, the access logs. They listened. Then they smiled. "Doctor," the chairwoman said, "we appreciate your passion, but you're connecting dots that don't exist." I left the room shaking. Not because they didn't believe me, but because they did. I don't think Sophia was just a patient. I think she was a subject, a disposable part of something much bigger, and I think she knew. She didn't ask me to save the baby. She didn't ask me to save herself. She asked me to save her. Maybe, just maybe, there's someone else still out there, someone I haven't found yet, but I will. Because last night, I got an envelope taped to my windshield, no return address, just one piece of paper inside, a picture, a newborn baby, alive, awake, wrapped in a hospital blanket. The tag on the bassinet read, Mendez, female, 6 pounds, 4 ounces. But I signed her death certificate myself. The envelope was the first crack in the silence. No return address, no note, just the photo, a living, breathing contradiction. How do you explain a baby alive when you've already signed her death certificate? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was a hurricane of questions, doubts, fears. Who sent the photo? Why now? What had I missed? And most terrifying, what if I wasn't the one in control? I decided to go back to the maternity ward, alone. I needed to see where it all began. The same fluorescent lights, the same sterile smell, antiseptic and despair. The faint hum of machines that had been witness to everything. I walked to Sophia's old room. It was empty now, stripped bare. But something caught my eye. A small, faded sticker on the wall. A barcode. Scanned it with my phone. Coordinates. A date. Not just any date. The night she came in. The night she died. It led me to an abandoned wing, long since closed off. Locked doors. Dusty floors. A place forgotten by the hospital and everyone who worked there. I found a window, cracked open. Inside, a makeshift nursery, plastic bassinets, boxes of unopened medical supplies, monitors blinking with no one watching. And then I heard it, a soft cry, a baby, alive. I followed the sound. In the corner, swaddled and fragile, was a tiny girl, eyes wide open, staring into the dark. She wasn't Sophia's baby. She was Sophia's baby, and she was alive. I picked her up. She smelled faintly of antiseptic and something else, something human. I wrapped her closer. I had to get her out, away from this place, away from whoever was behind this nightmare. I tried to leave through the emergency exit, but the alarms screamed. Footsteps behind me, heavy, fast. I ran, down hallways I didn't recognize, past locked doors, past faded signs warning staff not to enter. And then I saw her, Kendra Locke, standing at the end of the hall, hands in her pockets, smiling that same cold smile. "Going somewhere, doctor." My heart was pounding, my breath caught. I felt the weight of every choice crushing me. "You don't understand," I said. "This baby, she's alive." Kendra laughed. "Alive?" "For now." She stepped forward. "Don't play the hero, Elman. You're already in too deep." I swallowed hard. "How many others?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked away, disappeared into the shadows. I stood there, clutching the baby, knowing two things. One, this hospital is hiding something monstrous. And two, if I don't act fast, this little girl will disappear too. I'm no longer just a doctor. I'm a witness, a protector, and maybe, just maybe, the only hope she has. Sometimes saving a life means risking your own. I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to do my job, save lives, heal wounds, give people a chance. But that night, I learned something darker. Sometimes the hardest choices aren't medical. They're about trust, about betrayal, and what you're willing to sacrifice just to sleep at night. After that nightmare in the abandoned wing, I took Sophia's baby. I carried her through the back exits, through shadows, and gave her to someone I trusted, someone outside the system. But I knew the walls were closing in. The hospital board summoned me the next morning. Emergency meeting, cold faces, eyes sharper than scalpels. "You've been acting irrational," the chairwoman said. "There are no hidden wards, no missing patients, no conspiracy." I told them everything. The baby, the secret nursery, Kendra. They smiled, that same cruel corporate smile. "Doctor," she said softly, "sometimes you just see what you want to see. Maybe it's time to take a leave." But I couldn't rest, not while Sophia's voice still echoed in my head. "If you have to choose, save her." Back in my office, my hands were still shaking. Then the phone rang. Kendra, her voice flat, mechanical. "I know where the baby is." She gave me an address, a crumbling building on the outskirts of town. I went. No hesitation, no backup, just a growing pit in my stomach. Inside, the place smelled like mildew and metal. My shoes stuck to the floor with every step. Then I saw her, a woman, holding the baby, Sophia's baby. She looked up, her eyes, hard, wounded, unforgiving. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. I stepped forward. "Who are you?" She hesitated, then whispered, "I'm her mother." Not Sophia, her mother. The truth hit me like a defibrillator to the chest. Sophia was never alone. She was protecting someone, hiding someone, a lineage they wanted to erase. I asked, "Why hide the baby? Why not go to the police?" Tears welled in her eyes. "They run everything, the hospital, the records, the deaths. They experiment on girls like Sophia, pregnant girls, lost girls. They use them, then wipe them out. It wasn't malpractice, it was murder, with paperwork, and then footsteps, fast, heavy. We turned, Kendra and two men, armed, no words, no warnings. I grabbed the baby and ran, down the hall, out the back, through broken fences and barbed wire. Glass shattered behind me. Someone shouted my name. But I kept running, because now I wasn't just carrying a baby. I was carrying proof. Days blurred into a fog of fear and phone calls. I handed over everything to the feds. Files, photos, recordings. They opened a case, but it won't bring Sophia back. That's what eats me alive. I didn't fail because I chose wrong. I failed because I waited. I didn't have 60 seconds. I had 60 heartbeats, and I wasted them on doubt. If I could go back, God, I would, but I can't. So now all I have is a promise to protect her child, to tell the truth, and never again let a mother disappear without a trace. I saved the baby's life, but something inside me died that night.